Now, Donald Trump, he does not mess around at all. They're proposing new strict travel bans to be introduced. They're calling for essentially a full ban on places that he calls third world countries, that he says they're sending killers, leeches and entitlement junkies to the US. Of course, you remember that horrendous story of those two National Guard officers that were shot in Washington. Donald Trump, off the back of that, said he's going to halt all immigration from Afghanistan. I mean, he really doesn't mess around with things like this, does he?
That's leadership, Michelle. You don't guess, you don't gamble, and you don't import risk. You know, and he treats the duty of care to protect his own people more than the duty of care to protect foreigners, and it's the reverse here. Because here, compassion without control is a national security risk, and that's what we have. We keep being told it's about compassion, but there is nothing compassionate about endangering your own people, and that's what we're seeing here. So, you know, for me, that's leadership.
Is it leadership you admire, Carl? I
think you've got to protect your country and you've got to protect your borders, but then I think blanket bans and generalisations are never good. And I say that as a Liberal because I believe that if you generalise a whole population, it is nothing but troublesome. I mean, look at some of the people that have come to America and who you would keep out from that, like Albert Einstein, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
They're not from third world countries.
I mean,
there's a difference.
If we look at like some of the statistics on this, so I think I've seen 100,000 people had come from Afghanistan to America over the course of Biden's administration. And I know Trump's got a problem with that. But then if we look at like what's happened after that, so this one person has been from Afghanistan, 1 in 100,000, and you want to blanket ban that whole country?
I would.
See, like this is
One's
the thing.
too much.
So we talked about compassion before.
Why not?
Because in this country, and I just think we need to get away from a certain type of person is bad or good. There's bad and good in all communities.
But hang on.
Like, you're not bad because you come from Afghanistan. You're not bad because you come from Iran. You're a bad person or a good person regardless of where you're from. And the problem for me is we've gone in, and like this country included and America, started all these wars that have disrupted the Middle East, and then we say to people when they want to flee those wars, hang on a minute, no, you can't, you've got to stay there.
I'm fed up with this argument, actually.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade, and in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
And I hear it all the time from people sitting on the left. So, riddle me this. So if you're telling me that these people, young men, are fleeing these countries because we, the UK, have dabbled in creating wars there, is that what you're telling me? You want me to believe that, yeah? So you want me to think that these people are leaving?
Percentage of...
Right. So then let's see this thought process through. If these young men are leaving these countries because the UK has helped destabilise them, what do you think those young men have as an impression of Britain, the country that you think has destabilised their homelands? How do you think they regard the UK?
The problem here, Michelle, is you're strawmanning the argument.
No, I'm asking
no. So you're strawmanning the argument. So you're mixing up.
So what
you're
do
mixing
you
up
think
with,
they think of Britain?
With respect, you're mixing up legal immigration to this country and illegal immigration. So the people that are coming on those boats, whether they're from Afghanistan or wherever else.
We're not talking about routes.
Well, if you want an answer to your question, you need to let me finish it. Well, let me finish it then.
You're not understanding my question.
No, I do understand it, but you're mixing up two completely different things. Legal immigration and illegal immigration.
No, she's not. She's saying...
So if people are coming over here on boats, which we should stop, by the way, and it's like these men, and they're causing issues in this country, absolutely, we should stop that.
Your party calls for safe and legal routes from these countries.
So
my question is...
Yeah, for legal immigrants.
Yes. If your young men in these countries want to flee their homelands because Britain has in part destabilised their homelands...
Why are you always talking about it in terms of young men?
Because it is young men.
It's not all young men at all.
Because my eyes work. I'm talking about it in terms of young men because my eyes, despite my glasses, my eyes work. So I can see that it's young men. I'm not stupid.
Have you gone and witnessed it for yourself? So I'm not.
Please, Carl Cashman.
I am not disputing. I'm not disputing that these
primarily men.
Stop strawmanning the arguments.
Are you telling me that these? Are you
going to let me speak?
I think you're daft.
Well, I think you're daft equally.
The thing is, Carl, let me just step in. The thing is, Carl, we have let people into this country, whether they're from Afghanistan, Iran, as UK, who not only don't integrate, they actually hate this country. And you see it in some of the videos, the posts, their rhetoric, and our leaders, including yours, show endless compassion for them. But for me, Trump is doing what serious leaders do. They're putting his own people first. You pause immigration, you protect our borders, and you rebuild a nation. And we need that clarity here. We need a British version. Our safety first, our borders first, and our people first.
Right, we're going to a break, and here you go. Look, I've took my glasses off. I can't see my autocue now, but there's my glasses. I'm going to lend them to Carl.
I don't want your glasses, thank you very much.
And you can actually watch some of the footage that everyone else sees and see whether or not he can spot the girls and the women on these boats. I'll see you in a minute.
Must be dodgy glasses, then.
Let's get into serious matters, shall we? Because we've been talking about this previously, whether or not jury trials should be a thing where needed in our court system. Well, David Lammy now says that he essentially is going to roll out once-in-a-generation reform. Let's take a listen to him.
First, I will create new Swift courts within the Crown Court with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either-way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
The Tories were having none of that today. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
He found juries, and I quote, act as a filter for prejudice. But now he's become Justice Secretary. He's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Yeah. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
Now, Laila, you know a thing or two, of course, about the court system. For people that are not familiar with your background, you used to be a senior prosecutor. Now, I just want to go back to basics a second before we get into the nuts and bolts, because this change affects what they called either-way offences. So can you just tell the viewers what that actually is?
Yeah, so you have trials that are tried in the magistrates, and they're called summary offences, and that's for a maximum sentence of 12 months now. And then you have Crown Court offences, indictable-only offences, which can only be tried in the Crown Court, and those are the most serious ones. And then in the middle, you have either-way offences, where the defendant gets to pick whether it's a summary offence in the magistrates or it's an either-way, or it's tried in the Crown Courts. And there is a loophole there, I have to agree with David Lammy, because a lot of the defendants invariably choose the Crown Court because there's such a delay. And by the time that goes to the Crown Court, victims have given up, they've disappeared, and the CPS has to withdraw the charges. And I said this before with immigration issues. If you're subject to deportation matters, if you have criminal matters outstanding, then you do pick the Crown Court, because that gives you 2 to 3 more years here, because you can't deport anyone with criminal matters outstanding. So there is a loophole. But, Michelle, what we've seen in recent years is is a balloon in hate crime. And what happens is you could have a summary offence, which is really a minor offence, let's say pushing someone, which is assault. But if you shout a racial slur or a religious slur, that becomes an either way offence, and it can be bumped up to the Crown Court, and that's caused a huge ballooning in Crown Court matters, where it is basically still a minor summary offence and it should remain in the magistrates. But you cannot have one judge alone deciding guilt and sentence with no public participation for up to 3 years sentence. That is not a minor sentence.
Yeah, so just to recap, so if you're not following the story so far, the suggestion is exactly as Laila has just set out, that these juries would be done away with, essentially, and your case would be heard by an individual judge.
Yeah, so...
Do you support that change?
I don't support that change, because also he was very ambiguous. So he stated, he listed the number of indictable only. Indictable only are the most serious offences that can only be tried in the Crown Court. And he listed which types of cases would remain jury trials, but he didn't say that all indictable cases will remain jury. He gave a specific list, and that remains ambiguous, because there are either way offences that become indictable only. I know it's, for instance, your third burglary becomes indictable only. Some knife offences become indictable only if they're aggravated, and he didn't list those. And listen, if the government can take away a jury trial for crimes carrying 3 years, what stops them from taking it away for 5? Once you break that principle, that it's a slippery slope, and it's not about speed. Jurors acquit mainly when the state overreaches, and that's why some politicians obviously don't like them. They acquit when this, and judges don't. So.
David Lammy, he says that these changes are, quote, bold but necessary, and he blames all the backlogs. He's saying that the Crown Court is projected to have a backlog of 100,000 cases by 2028. Carl, do you support these new reforms?
No, not at all. And I think he's right in the sense that the courts have got a backlog, but there's different ways to challenge that, but not challenging it through getting rid of juries, because being trialled by a jury of your peers is fundamental to the law in this country, and it has been since the days of Magna Carta, and it's actually inherent to that document. So I am very sceptical of Labour's motion approach to this, to be perfectly honest. And look, I think Laila was right. If you're going to try and pick and choose which of these cases are going to go before a jury and which aren't, I think you really need to question the motivations of the government with that, to be perfectly honest. We need to tackle the inefficiencies in the system, of which there are plenty, but this simply isn't the way to do it.
Can you just help viewers understand, in terms of court sittings, because as a layperson, I myself am sitting here thinking, well, if you want to get a backlog down, why don't you just extend your opening hours? Why don't you start working evenings? Why don't you start working weekends? Why don't you start doing all of those things? And only once you've stretched your opening hours to the brink should you then start looking at other measures. What are typically, I don't know if the opening hours is the right phrase, it's not a shop, but you know what I mean, the operating hours, the sitting hours of these courts?
Yeah, I mean, the sitting hours usually end at about 4 or 5. And you're right.
Just weekdays?
Just weekdays, yeah.
Because during COVID, I'm sure if my memory serves me right, I'm sure they introduced some kind of weekend sittings or something. So why aren't they running? You could basically do 24/7 sittings for a period of time.
I mean, you could, and I think they did it in the Southport trials, didn't it? So when the political will is there, for the arrest of the Southport riots, I think they did have 24 sittings. It was very quick. And speed, though, is not a legitimate justification to remove jury trials.
Nigel, one of my viewers, says, please can someone explain to me why no jury makes the courtroom process quicker? He says, surely you still have to sit and listen to evidence, expert witnesses, police, etc. Whether that's a jury or a judge listening, the listening part needs to be factored in, as does the consideration part. So Nigel's asking, what speeds it up then?
I mean, I agree, but I think it takes more time to amalgamate a jury. But the problem is we can't be gaslit by speed, right? Because the effect is a structural weakening of the right to be judged by your peers for quite a major sentence, a major constitutional change that's just dressed up as administrative reform. There's no mandate for that. There's no debate. And trial that once takes place, juries bring life experience, they bring independence, and they bring a view that judges can't see, because judges are the institution, and you can't have the institution judging itself.